Hello, you. Welcome to Neighborful at Night. We are here to help you lay down the burdens of this day and get some rest. My name is Michael, and I'm the creator and host of Neighborful Station, a story based meditation podcast set in a small town that's big enough for all of us. We gather tonight in solidarity with our family and dear friends from Minnesota and everyone else who is confronting injustice in the world right now. This is a hard time of year during some of our longest nights. Many of us are surrounded by cold, snow, and ice. It's easy for us to feel lost and alone. We are here together to remember that we are connected and that the world we are longing to create is still possible, no matter how hard this day has been. So let's take a moment now to get comfy. I invite you to close your eyes if that feels right to you, and listen to my voice. Take a deep breath. As you leave behind the hustle of your day, take a moment now to think of someone who brings peace to your heart. This can be someone from your present or your past, someone who is still with us or not. It can even be someone that you don't know personally, but have seen out in the world. Think of how this person inspires you to seek peace in your own life, and take another deep breath. Let's widen that circle and think about all of the people in your life who have shown you how to be generous, courageous, and kind. These can be relatives or chosen family. They can be teachers, coaches, mentors, or neighbors. I want you to take 30 seconds right now and remember how these people have formed you with their love. I will keep the time. Thank you, friends. As we close out this meditation, I invite you now to stretch your arms and legs out a little, if that's comfortable for you, and let go of the tensions of the day. Each time we gather for Neighborful at Night, we have a show and tell with people from our community. These will be artists and crafters, community activists, and good neighbors. Sometimes I will be sharing their stories, and sometimes they will be sharing their own. The goal, as always, is to help us remember that a better world is possible right now, and that joy is always available to us. Tonight, I want to share a bedtime biography of the civil rights activist Bayard Rustin. Today is the perfect day to remember his life because Bayard Rustin was one of the architects of the March on Washington, where the Reverend Dr. King gave his I Have a Dream speech in 1963. When the Reverend Dr. King stood at the podium at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom on August 28, 1963, looking out over 250,000 people, he was standing on a platform that had been created by Bayard Rustin, a black, gay, Quaker socialist who had co-led the planning process for the landmark event. A member of the March on Washington organizing committee once said of Rustin, "You needed an organizer, but you needed somebody with charisma to make you want to follow him. That was his gift. Bayard Rustin was born in Westchester, Pennsylvania, just outside Philadelphia, in 1912. He was raised by his mother's parents, who let him believe they were his own parents until he was a teenager. Bayard's grandmother, Julia, was a Quaker and was also a member of the NAACP. The family regularly hosted black activists in their home, including W.E.B. Du Bois and James Weldon Johnson. Bayard was a talented musician, and he attended college on a music scholarship, though he was expelled from the first college he attended for organizing a strike there. In his 20s, Bayard moved to New York City, joined a Quaker meeting, and began to get involved in organizing for racial justice. He started working with A. Philip Randolph, one of the founding fathers of the Civil Rights Movement, in 1941. And in 1942, Bayard co-founded a nonviolent resistance group called the Congress of Racial Equality, or CORE. A few years later, he traveled to India to study Gandhi's nonviolent resistance movement. And in 1947, Bayard helped to organize the first of the Freedom Rides through the South to desegregate interstate buses. Bayard Rustin's sexuality became public in a time when homosexuality was still a crime in the United States in 1953. He was arrested and served a 60-day sentence in Pasadena, California, for sexual activity in a car with 2 other men. During the years that followed, Bayard struggled to balance his activism in the growing civil rights movement with concerns from other leaders that his status as an openly gay man would distract from the work of the movement overall. Bayard began working closely with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in 1956, as Dr. King was organizing the Montgomery bus boycott. The two of them co-founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in 1957. But in 1960, they pulled back from working together after false rumors were spread about an intimate relationship between them. The March on Washington was one of Bayard's towering achievements. In a little more than 2 months, he and a team of young organizers planned out a day-long event on the National Mall that became one of the largest peacetime demonstrations in American history. In a Life magazine cover story a week after the march, Bayard said that the day had, quote, made Americans feel for the first time that we were capable of being truly a nation, that we were capable of moving beyond division and bigotry. There is a wonderful movie on Netflix called Rustin, which mostly focuses on the run-up to the March on Washington. The film was co-produced by Barack and Michelle Obama, and it's a fizzy, jazzy ride that feels very much in the spirit of its namesake. I watched it again over the weekend, and I would definitely recommend it for folks who are high school age and older. Now, take a moment and think back to a time in your life when you have helped to create a moment that brings people together. It could be a block party with your neighbors, a bus you organized to attend the Women's March, or even a dinner party with dear friends. Bring yourself back to that experience. Notice what it feels like to enjoy the company of other people of good faith, and take a slow breath. All right. See if it feels good now to wiggle your fingers and toes, and try to release any tension in your shoulders by holding them up by your ears for a moment and then letting them down. Next, I'd like to share a message with you from our neighbor line here at Neighborful Station. We have a voicemail box where our listeners call in and tell their stories from the real world of neighbors who have taken great care of them. Tonight's message comes from our dear friend Mary in Minnesota.
My name is Mary, and I live in Minnesota, where it is often icy. So when a sudden fall left me with several injuries, including a rotator cuff tear and a fractured foot bone, I knew I would need some kind of help. With an orthopedic boot and an arm that couldn't reach as high as my head, I struggled to imagine how I was going to live alone through my recovery. People asked what they could do, but I only could think of a few things. Being gun-shy about asking for help, I managed some requests for a few tasks that demanded 2 working arms and or a steady foot. Changing the litter box, hauling out trash, cutting up accumulated cardboard boxes. It was a stretch for me to ask friends to put up my small Christmas tree, but they did, with humor and grace. The people who ask how to help obviously qualify as good neighbors, but I was awed by the people who did what I didn't know I needed done. I don't think I can go to the play with you, I told one friend. Her answer was to pick me up, deposit me at the front door of the theater, drive to a far-flung spot in the icy parking lot, and come back to help me get to my seat. When I mentioned I had a doctor's appointment to another friend, her response was instantaneous. I will go with you. She not only drove me, but sat in the doctor's office to make sure I understood what he was saying. My next-door neighbor didn't ask what I needed for food. Her approach was, I've just made tostadas. Can I bring you a plate? Friends brought lunch, changed my sheets, dropped off food, got the mail, gave me rides, and told me my hair looked great, even though my styling was non-existent since my arm was too weak to hold a blow dryer. Some of these people are members of my faith community. Several are not. Many of them don't know each other, but they are a community of kindness, and I am grateful.
With Mary's message in mind, take a moment now to think back to a time when one of your neighbors has taken great care of you. This could be a recent experience, or it could be all the way back to your childhood. Remember what it felt like to know that you were supported when you really needed help, and take a deep breath. Now, let's have one more big stretch together. Tomorrow, on Tuesday, we will be back here for another edition of Neighborful at Night, with a show and tell about Walk Around Philadelphia, an amazing community project that's celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. I'm putting a link in the chat now so you can add Tuesday's show to your calendar. Just give me 1 second while I grab that link. Here we go. Oop. All right. As we come to the end of this gathering, I invite you to stick around as we listen to a sleep edition episode of Neighborful Station. Tonight's episode is called Cumberland March. Set on the weekend of Juneteenth, you are helping to support a 3-day march to sites on the Underground Railroad in Pennsylvania. The story will play for about 10 minutes, and then the soundscape of the town will continue to fill out a full hour. If you'd like to set a sleep timer on your device, you can set it right now for 1 hour, and it should switch off just before the soundscape runs out. Note that if you step away from the broadcast in the YouTube app or your browser, if you're on your phone or a tablet, the sound will cut out while you step away, but we will be here when you come back. You might like to let this soundscape play if you're ready for bed, or just to have some peaceful background noise as you take some time away from your screens. I want to thank you again for joining us and for taking this opportunity to rest. You are wonderful, just as you are, and you deserve a world that lives up to your goodness. May you find strength and creativity in organizing your community during these difficult times. May you always remember that you are surrounded by the love that has formed you. And may you grant yourself the gift of rest tonight. Good night, friends. Welcome to the sleep edition of Neighborful Station. At the end of the story, the soundscape will continue to play so that you can fall asleep. Sweet dreams. Saturday morning finds you riding in a support van through the Appalachian Mountains of Pennsylvania on your way to meet up with the Cumberland March. A group of people from Neighborful Station are taking 3 days to march from the town of Chambersburg back home, visiting sites from the Underground Railroad along the way. The tree canopy is so dense around you that you can barely see the hillsides above you, much less the strong June sun. A cool northwest breeze from the open windows musses your hair, and you feel the nubby fabric of the front passenger seat on the backs of your legs. You catch the sweet scent of linden trees along the side of the road, and you relax your eyes as you take a centering breath. The van driver pulls onto the shoulder when you reach the group and brings the van to a gentle stop. You hop out and head for the back cargo doors, where you have a wagon and supplies waiting for you. This morning, you will be hiking with the group for 3 hours until another volunteer takes your place at lunchtime. Joshua waves from the edge of the group of roughly 100 people. As he walks over to the van, he says, "Hello, you. I am so glad to see you." You say, "Good morning, Joshua. How's your knee holding up?" Joshua waves dismissively in your direction. He says, "It's okay. It'll grow back. I'm part starfish." You say, "Of course. In the meantime, can I interest you in a banana?" Joshua says, "Yes, please. I slept through breakfast at the camp." The marchers cross over to your side of the road and gather at a respectful distance as you pull everything out of the back of the van. You have a big water dispenser, a box of bananas, and a first aid kit. You step back once everything is set, and the crowd surges forward, mumbling thank yous and taking bananas for themselves. The van driver asks you, "You are all set, yeah?" You say, "Yes, Fritz, thank you for the ride." Fritz says, "See you at lunchtime. Tschüss." He climbs in the van and drives away. Grace comes over to fill up her water bottle, swallows a couple pills that she has pulled from her day pack, and pats your arm. She says, "Thank you for being here. It means a lot to me, to all of us." You say, "I wouldn't miss it." The march continues, along a 2-lane highway that is still dark enough under the trees that passing cars have their headlights on. As the heat of the day rises, you are grateful for the shade, but also happy for the occasional clearing where you can look out across the ancient and rounded hills that shelter you. Grace walks alongside you for a while. The two of you spend most of this time in a comfortable silence. At one point, she says, "It's easy to think we are out here all alone, but the whole forest is keeping track of us." You listen through the ragged footsteps of your neighbors for the sounds of squirrels, foxes, and deer. You take a long drink of the cool and crisp water you and Fritz brought here from home, and you draw in a deep breath. As you near the lunch stop for the second day of the march, Joshua hobbles up to you, now wearing an elaborate brace on his left knee. You ask him, "Are you feeling all right?" He says, "Yes. It hurts a little, but fortunately Grace is keeping me in ibuprofen." The two of them smile wearily at each other. You say, "I'm a little worried that you're going to hurt yourself." Joshua says, "I think it's meant to hurt a little bit, and that's okay." The three of you continue marching, each consumed with your own thoughts. Fritz returns at lunchtime, bringing one of the Jessicas as your replacement on the support wagon for the afternoon. You greet each other warmly and work together to restock the wagon and to lay out the box lunches for the group. Everyone waves as you and Fritz pull away, heading back to town. On Sunday afternoon, the marchers make their way into Neighborful Station, coming down the Cumberland Valley Road along the river and turning up College Avenue for the last mile of the march onto the college campus. A large group of neighbors from the north side of town joins the march at the College Avenue Bridge. More people come out on each block, kids and parents and older people using walkers. By the time the group reaches the Juneteenth celebration concert on campus, there are over 1,000 people marching together. You find Joshua and Grace sitting together at the edge of the quad, with bags of ice on their knees and plates of watermelon on the table next to them. You say, "I'm really proud of both of you for doing the whole march." Joshua says, "Thank you for stepping up with the festival committee so I could do this. Everybody did a great job. It's good to be reminded that it's not all on me." Grace beams at you, saying, "Look at you. Look at how you've joined us." You say, "You made it easy for me to join." Joshua says with a sigh, "We still have so much work to do." Grace says, "Yes, we do. Isn't that a good thing, though? To have meaningful work available to us in our time? What a gift." The three of you fall silent, the sounds of the celebration washing over you. You feel the late afternoon sun on your back, and you take a contemplative breath. Joshua reaches over to his plate, picks up a piece of watermelon, and hands it to you. He says, "I propose a toast to the joiners." May we find each other and always remember that we are not alone. Grace says, "Hear, hear." You say, "Thank you both for finding me." The three of you hold your slices of watermelon in the air for a moment, touching them to each other, and then you savor a bite that is bursting with the sweetness and warmth of other suns.